Every power thinks it will last, always. Every ability says its dominance lasts for good, and every single one of them, history shows them to be right. Terrible, terrible mistakes. By way of the Romans, they thought their armies were impossible for the British to beat. Their kingdom would always have light. To the Soviets who said their method would work that would kill capitalism, all of them stayed in the same expected pattern of go down. They all didn't listen to the advice, not seeing the warning signs until it was too late. Yes, the U.S. is now walking down the very same road, further into the than most Americans at different points of collapse, you know. The fall of nations isn't chance. It's not sudden, and it isn't at all random. There's a pattern, a list of 7 different steps that every major power takes as it falls apart from the inside. Spain came next, it back in the 1600s. Britain did the same thing in the early 1900s. It was followed by the Soviet Union, back in the 1980s. Today, the United States is at the 5th of 7 stages. That's not the question. Whether the pattern will finish itself. The question is, if you'll figure out where we stand before the final stages were hit. What makes this pattern stand out? How scary each stage feels every day while you're going through it. Empires in decline don't wake up their people. Wake up one morning and think about their country is losing its shape. They change. They give a reason. They make up their minds that this time is different and that they're in some way broken free from the rules of history. In spite of this, the pattern. Give individualism some thought. It doesn't work. Whether you care about military power or economic numbers or pride in your country, it follows. It has its own harsh reasoning and has never been mistaken. So what are these 7 stages? How do you find them? And why should every American be scared of, have we already gone a long way in the sequence? Because it's not easy to understand this pattern, just an academic interest, to stay alive. Empires don't just fall apart when they do. In a quiet way, fade into history. They take the wealth of their people, their safety, and their future was down with them. Also, if you can't see the notice, you can't stay safe from these signs what's coming. The first stage is growth and self-assurance. This is when city-states are born, when they find out how powerful they are, and stretch it all over the world. Spain reached this point in the 1500s when it took over the Americas and filled Asia with silver from the New World. Britain, it in the 1700s as they were building the strongest navy in the world, and they began claiming land on every continent. It was reached by the USSR when they came out after World War II as a nuclear power that controls half of Europe. And America went on stage 1 after World War II, when they turned into the clear leader of the world with the world's defense and reserve currency bases all over the world. During with growth, anything seems possible. The economy gets better and the military wins, and people think their way is better than everyone else's. There's a strong sense of manifest fate, that it's not just good for businesses to grow, not possible. Things come in from areas that were taken over or economic a majority, and the population grows sure of themselves, sometimes cocky about what they do in the world. However, what's dangerous about stage 1? Good luck leads to overconfidence, and being too sure of yourself leads straight to stage 2. The second stage is royal overstretch. This is when nations take on more than they're able to chew. When they promise to do more land, more wars, and more duties than they could actually handle. When Spain tried to fight wars all over Europe and run bases in places like Mexico and the Philippines, Britain got there when they tried. To have power over a quarter of the world's land mass with fewer people living there than California today. Russia and the USSR. When they tried to enter overstretch, compete with the US's spending on the military to keep communist governments in power from Vietnam to Afghanistan, from Cuba. Empire of. At first, overstretch isn't clear. It starts with something that makes sense: more growth, one more war, one more land, and one more promise. However, to grow, You need tools, government, and a military force. The costs keep going up. It finds the country itself spread out and trying to keep up power over long distances with limited resources. Out of the blue, what seemed like being strong turns into being weak. Every new responsibility takes away resources from already there. All the crises in one area gets funding and attention other people. The empire starts to move. Instead of being proactive, always putting out fires instead of building for the tomorrow. America moved on to stage 2. Between the years 1990 and 2000. Instead of ending the Cold War, America grew as it built on its wins. NATO moved to the east and started wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they are determined to protect dozens of places around the world. Today, the United States has more than 800 army bases, more than 70 different countries. It spends more on defense than the next 10 teams combined countries put together. It is dedicated to fighting for Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Europe as a whole, and Israel at the same time. That is standard stretch too far. The things that are needed to hold on to these promises they are heavy and keep getting heavier every year. The only thing that kills is overstretch. Empires. A lot of power has backed off from overextension and got better. The real harm happens in the third stage, fiscal trouble. This is when the prices of taking care of the empire start to go beyond how much money the empire had to pay for them. Spain's finances got bad in the late 1500s, when the price of their European wars were worse than even the huge silver has its source in the Americas. Those who said failed 4 times in 50 years. Britain's finances got bad after World War I, when the expenses of keeping their kingdom going was more than it made a lot of money. Russia and the USSR went through an economic crisis in the 1980s when spending on the military to compete with America ate a quarter of their whole business. There is no fiscal problem. This means the government has no more cash. Tomorrow. It refers to basic math. Empire stops doing its job. How much it costs to taking care of land, fighting wars, and power to project grow faster than the system that keeps them going. In response, governments borrow more money, putting out more money, or tax hikes. However, these answers lead to their own trouble. Borrowing money means future people today will have to pay for today's making promises. When you print money, inflation lowers the value of the cash. Increasing taxes slows down growth, adding to the trouble. America went through a fiscal problem in the 2000s and has been into it since then. The national debt has grown from $6 trillion in 2000 to more than $33 trillion today. Payments of interest on that debt now use up more than the whole defense budget. The government takes out loans to pay interest on money that you already have lent money. In the meantime, military commitments keep getting bigger. The wars it cost over in Iraq and Afghanistan alone. A lot of money. It costs money to help Ukraine. More than $100 billion. Keeping the bases hundreds of billions of dollars around the world every year. There is a mistake in the math, no longer. But there can be even a fiscal problem and controlled if the base economy stays strong. The real thing that speeds up, this is the 4th stage of collapse. Economic go down. This is when the economy starts to slow down or stop growing when compared to its rivals. Spain's the business didn't grow in the 1600s because the loss of American silver caused inflation. Industries in the country. The economy of Britain was passed by the United States and Germany in the early 1900s. The Soviet economy went down. More and more behind the West from the 1960s on, they couldn't compete in technology or items for everyday use. Business decline often starts in a small way. Growth down. Innovation stops happening. Cheaper places to make things place names. The currency gets weaker. Young. It's hard for people to get good jobs. Without renewal, infrastructure gets old. What used to feel like plenty starts to get worse. To feel like staying the same. People start to wonder if their kids will do better than they do. The empire's control over the economy. which once what seemed unbreakable starts to break. The American economy has been getting worse, the same as its rivals since the 2000s. The economy of China has grown from $1 trillion in 2000 to more than $17 trillion today. Making things has moved to Asia. The infrastructure is falling apart. Real wages for most Americans have stayed the same for decades. What the dollar does as the world's main cash is being asked to do. Countries are doing business in, they use their own money instead of dollars. The economic base that kept things going, the United States, is losing its worldwide dominance, and the degradation is getting worse. The fourth stage, when the economy goes down, it makes room for during the most dangerous time in imperial fall apart. Because when countries can't do it, to keep their power through, to boost their economy, they often look to military strength was their last edge. Power. That is where the design shows up, turns into something really bad, where empires that are falling apart make the rules. That change gradual fall into sudden, terrible event. This brings us to the fifth stage, is social and political breaking up. This is where America is now, and it's where the fall pattern can be seen to ordinary people. At this point, the kingdom starts to lose its internal unity. Bone break. Political differences get worse. There is less social cohesion. The people lose faith in their government, and instead of working together, getting things done by working together, the shared identities and values that held the kingdom together as it grew begin to break down. Spain had a social split up in the 1640s, when Spain and Catalonia rose up against Madrid's rule. Identities of regions grew stronger than the identity of the empire. People stopped thinking of themselves as part of a bigger project in Spain and began to look at the central government as a force that hurts. Britain went through this after World War I when the country was crippled by strikes. Ireland fought to become its own country, and national unity was replaced by class fighting. The Soviet Union began to fall apart. In the 1980s, when ethnic states first started to form claiming their freedom, communist ideas lost their hold on the people, and leaders in the region stopped following Moscow's orders. The signs of Stage 5 are easy to spot once you know what to look for. Talking about politics turns poisonous. When elections come up, existential wars in which both sides sees the other person as an enemy instead of fight back. Institutions of the government lose trustworthiness. People stop trusting midterms, courts, the news, and the law enforcement. Differences between regions become even more important than country pride. People feel more connected to their which state, what race, and what political because of their race or income than with their country. There are social groups that directly disagree with the current system instead of trying to change it. The breaking up of America sped up. Big changes in the 2010s and 2020s. A lot of people are angry about politics now. Not seen this low since the Civil War. The GOP and Democrats don't just, we disagree about politics. They look at each other as dangers to democracy itself. Believe in institutions have broken down. Only 20% of people in the U.S. accept the federal government, trust in Congress and the Supreme Court, and big news sites have sliding down. Divisions by region are going deeper. Blue and red states putting forward rules that directly values that are at odds with each other. Some states are being honest about ignoring federal rules that they don't agree with. The social structure is coming apart, separate. The U.S. can't agree on simple things. Truths about the world, let alone answers to your issues. Protests and riots have become normal reactions to political disagreement. Citizens take care of putting people into mental bubbles where they only talk to people who share what they think. Getting married across political lines are not common anymore. Yes, even families are going their separate ways over politics. The shared culture that used to make Americans. Being ready to give up things for each other is going away and being replaced by tribes. Prides that pit one person against another citizen. Not so with Stage 5 splitting. As even though it's dangerous, it doesn't promise fall apart. Some powers have been able to reform can help us get back from the edge, renewal, or danger from outside that bring the people back together. The main idea, stage 6, is the point of no return. The troops went too far and lost. This is when the empire's heavy weapons, spread thin by too much responsibility and weaker because of internal split, decisive losses that break the idea of being unbeatable. In the 1640s, Spain hit stage 6, when their forces were beaten by French and Dutch troops, ending the Spanish having power in Europe. Britain hit it during World War II, when they could no longer protect their kingdom with American help, they pretty much ended their part as a world force. The USSR Union moved into the 6th stage of Afghanistan when their army got stuck in a war that couldn't be won, that showed their whole system's weak spot. Going down in battle in stage 6 isn't just about lost fights. It's about the mental effects of those losses on foes and people who live there. When the military of a giant fails, it sends a let the world know that the power is open to harm. Allies start to hedge their bets. The enemies get more violent. The client says to look for new guardians. Most importantly, people lose faith in their government to keep them safe and show that they are strong. The United States hasn't hit stage 6 yet, but there are more and more danger signs. The pulling out of Iraq and Afghanistan hurt the United States' image. To be military ready, the failure to stop Russia from invading Ukraine or stop China from building up its forces in the South China Sea points to falling power to scare. The U.S. military 10 years of decline have made things less ready, of actions to fight insurgencies and putting off regular war ability to do. Recruitment is going down because not as many young Americans want to serve. The military is becoming more political. When police take sides in domestic wars over politics. What worries me more is the United States military obligations to what it can actually do. The White House says it can't fight at the same time lots of wars in Asia and Europe. But America is determined to protect friends in both places. If China attacked Taiwan, as Russia made things worse in Ukraine, the American military would be pushed to their limits, past their limits, a strong military. If something goes wrong in either room, the breakdown of mind that defines 6th stage. The last stage, number 7, is the breakdown and replacing of the system. This is the end of the old power, and it is replaced by something else. Spain's the Habsburg government fell apart in the early 1700s. Bourbon rule took its place, gave up most of their national goals. After World War II, Britain's kingdom fell apart. War II, and was followed by American dominance and the government of the Commonwealth. The USSR Union broke up in 1991, leaving into separate republics that mainly gave up on communist ideas. 7th stage. Many different kinds of things can fall. Revolutions that are violent are sometimes what gets rid of the old order for good. There are times when it ends peacefully, which parts of the empire break off into smaller pieces that are easier to handle. Sometimes it's change that leads to the same country still exists, but gives up its plans to become an empire and changes its method in a fundamental way to do with politics or money. What makes stage 7A must once the pattern progress up to this point is that the costs of keeping the kingdom going are more than anything that could be good. How the math works of collapse become impossible to avoid. Things that should be spent money on rebirth are eaten up by the desperate try to keep a system together that doesn't work anymore. The people who should be. Instead of building the future, they are fighting over the remains of an order that was dying. The empire turns into a cancer on its own, taking money and energy from people without giving people safety or wealth in exchange. The United States hasn't reached stage 7 yet, but it's clear where things are going. Each the next stage of the pattern, likely from the last one. Growth led to stretch too far. Because of overstretch, the budget problem. Due to the fiscal situation, drop in the economy. A drop in the economy to the breaking up of society. And friendly fragmentation is making the conditions right for overextending the force, and eventually system broke down. It's never been the same been broken. There is a kingdom that has went through this process and finished it. All that changes are the time and the certain shape that fall takes. Some empires slowly fall apart over a generation. Others fall apart inside decades. Some break apart quietly. Others fight with each other in public wars. No one has gotten away from the basic ideas behind imperial overextension and decay inside the body. The eye can see the pattern. The stages are likely to happen, and America is deep in the order with only 2 rounds left before what was going to happen. Every kingdom that has been down this road before thought they were different, thought they were unique, and thought they could get away from the strict rules of history. Spain believed that their silver would last for all time. Britain believed their navy beat everyone else. The Soviets thought their government was scientifically better. All of them, they were wrong. It's not whether America will finish the design, the what will happen next, and if. When it happens, you'll be ready. Since countries fall apart, they don't just leave without a trace. It costs them. They wrote everything down. Your money saved, your safety and future. The people who live through the fall of the empire aren't those who have the most faith in the system. They are the ones who know the pattern early and put themselves in place in that case. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes in a very dangerous way. And America is singing just right now, ever since the first kingdom fell, before. The only thing that makes this different is, you know what's going to happen this time. If this opened your eyes to where we really stop and click subscribe. History has all are there if you know how to find them.